Hi guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'll be doing an introduction on the Enneagram, or rather the Enneagram types or the Enneagram theory of personality. So what is the Enneagram? Uh, the Enneagram is a personality theory that is contrasted with the Myers-Briggs type indicator. So whereas the Myers-Briggs type indicator measures your personality, the Enneagram measures your core fears and motivations. And the theory suggests that fears and motivations are two sides of the same coin, and that a healthy amount of fear can actually be very good for us. It not only suggests that it can be good for us, it suggests that it does exist and it does define us. So if you think about it, humans do tend to strive for whatever it is they're afraid of, or rather what they're insecure about, right? So for example, if you have a woman and let's say she's insecure about her looks, right? What is she gonna do? She's gonna go to the gym, she's going to put on a lot of makeup, she's going to buy a lot of fancy clothes, right? Because she wants to look the best, and no matter how good she looks, she doesn't think it's good enough. Likewise, a man, if he's insecure about his masculinity, what's he going to do? He's going to go to the gym, he's going to become really buff, and he might own a few shotguns here and there, right? So that's essentially what the theory is. The theory is just trying to say that what we are afraid of, we try to avoid and become the opposite. So the things that we're best at is really the opposite of what we fear. And obviously, you can see the logic, the rationale, the quote unquote wisdom of the Enneagram. And that's the title of a famous book on Enneagram that suggests that, if you weren't afraid of certain things, then you would never achieve them. Like if you weren't worried about your health, you'd eat anything, you'd do meth, you wouldn't go to the gym. Some people who struggle with obesity, it's not for medical reasons. They just don't give a damn about their body. People who don't take vitamins, people who consume a lot of drugs and alcohol, they just don't care about their bodies, right? Or people who don't care about their appearance, whether they're male or female. They don't shower enough, they go to everywhere in a tracksuit, they don't comb their hair, they don't brush their teeth, they don't cut their nails. So that sort of fear that you might be unpresentable to people, it's sort of a healthy fear when taken to a certain extent. So as in the diagram earlier, the Enneagram breaks down these fears into 9 types. So these are the 9 types: the reformer, the helper, the achiever, the individualist, the investigator, loyalist, enthusiast, challenger, and peacemaker. And each of them has a core fear, right? We have many fears in life, but the Enneagram only defines the core fears which it thinks motivates us the most. So, number one, the reformer, their greatest fear is of being corrupted, right? They don't like evil, and they feel that if they slip into evil, then, the whole world will go into chaos and they'll become axe murderers. So they really try and stay on the straight and narrow. So the greatest example of an Enneagram 1 would probably be Batman, right? So Batman, he has that no killing rule where he feels if he crosses the line, he'll never be able to come back from it. So straight and narrow. So good careers for Enneagram 1s are like judges, police officers, priests, these positions where you really can't afford to be corruptible. Though, I mean, police in America, that's a whole different story, but that's kind of the thing they would do, right? So an Enneagram 1 would probably want to join the FBI because they feel the law must be upheld, right? We must not fall into corruption. or a lot of priests and monks, they must feel that we must be on that path of spiritual purity. So even staunch or very devout Christians would likely be Enneagram ones, but there are other types as well that they could be. They could be sixes and nines, and I'll get into them as well. So Enneagram Two, the helper, their greatest fear is being unloved. So they can be great caregivers. And I would say that a lot of the most popular people would probably be Enneagram twos or have Enneagram twos as their wing. I'll explain the wings in a moment. And yeah, it's pretty straightforward and simple to understand. These guys just feel people don't like them enough. So what do? They strive to make you like them. They figure out, how can I be popular? How can I get people to like me? So that can lead them to be a bit shallow and superficial, and they might forsake their own interests for the sake of being loved. So, as a man, for example, it's kind of frowned upon or stereotyped to if you do like anime, because it's seen as kiddish. So, an Enneagram 2, deep down, they might like anime, but they're like, oh, people won't love me if I like anime. So, they won't watch it. When asked them about anime, they'll be like, oh, yeah, it's really kiddish and stuff. So, essentially, that's uh, that's the sacrifice that they make when it comes to being an Enneagram 2, is that they sometimes are not really their real selves because they just care about being loved. So this can lead them to desire certain things like maybe fame or being politicians, because they want people to vote for them, they want to be popular, they want to be liked, they want that approval. But it does tie into some other types as well. We also have the Enneagram 3, and their greatest fears of being worthless. So, what do? They try to achieve a lot, right? So, Enneagram 3s are just the overachiever kids, the kids who come home with a shit ton of medals, like, oh, they have all these sports medals, oh, they have all these debating trophies, first class honors, those type of people, because they feel worthless. They feel they need that sort of external validation to prove their worth. It in MBTI, it's sort of related to extroverted thinking. So if you have extroverted thinking as one of your top, either your dominant or auxiliary function, then you are likely to be an Enneagram 3. It's one of your more likely types. So yeah, very simple to understand. So job opportunities, really anything. They just want the highest and the best position, right? They just want to make their family proud. And then we have Enneagram 4s, very, very unique. Enneagram 4s, the individualists, their greatest fear is not being unique. They feel that no one will notice them stand out from the crowd. So this isn't specifically about achievement like the Enneagram 3, it's about uniqueness. So these people become very artistic. Most artistic people, I would say, are Enneagram 4s, because with MBTI, ISFPs are said to be the most artistic. But I have met several different people. Like I've met an ENFP, an INTJ, two ENFPs, one INTJ. They were very artistic people. Also an ISFP who also is artistic. But all of them, I don't know about the ISFP, but all of them, the INTJ and the ENFPs, they were Enneagram 4s, or at least one of them. I don't know about the other ENFP, but one INTJ and one ENFP was an Enneagram 4. So I think Enneagram 4s, or rather the Enneagram, when it comes to determining artistic capability, I think the 4 does a better type of that, because with MBTI, I think other types can be extremely creative. I think INTJs can be very creative if they're artistic. ENFPs, INFPs, they can be very artistic as well. So calling an ISFP the artist, like, oh yeah, this type is the artist, I think it kind of undermines it frankly, I think intuitive people are always more creative. But anyway, the bottom line is Enneagram does a better job of spotting artistic people. And then we have the type 5, which I'm a type 5. So it's kind of, they're called the investigator, and it's a fear of being unprepared or incapable, and they want to be competent. So the fives kind of view the world as sort of harsh and chaotic, and they feel they need to study it in order to tame it and to dominate it. They feel quite vulnerable in that sense. So a five is always going to read up on everything. So they're kind of like the knowledge seeker. The type that correlates most with MBTI would be INTPs, INTJs, and a few INFJs as well. So these are the people who they read up on everything. So, they want to cook. They're like, oh, this is hard. I don't know what to do. I need to read up on it. They want to get into a fight. They're like, oh, I can't just get into a fight. I need to learn martial arts. Then I can fight. They want to start a business. They're like, oh, I can't just start a business. Some people just wing it. They're like, oh, yeah, I just started selling candy. Like Richard Branson would be a 7. He's like, oh, I just started selling candy or whatever. Then I started a record business. Like he didn't really read up on it. He just winged it the whole way. To a 5, that's terrifying. They're like, no, I have to study what are the principles of business, what are the theories. I have to dissect this thing from the inside out before I start it. So that's the fear of being sort of incompetent, incapable, and being unprepared. So they strive to be as competent and prepared as possible before they engage in things. So jobs for them just pretty similar to INTPs, INTJs, just cerebral types, research, philosophy, medicine, those kind of things, computer science, the geeky, nerdy, brainy stuff. That's what most fives would do. Fields that have more to do with research and theory than actual practice. So a 5 would not really want to join the military. They might not want to join fields that, they call things science and art. A 5 would not really want to be part of a field that's an art. So something like politics, there's no book you can read on politics like, oh, how to be a politician, how to get votes, right? There's some books on influence, but it's not straightforward. Like you can read maybe 5 books on programming and learn how to make Instagram, but you can't read 5 books on politics and learn how to win an election. So fives would kind of be wary of those fields that are poorly understood, poorly documented, poorly explained from a theoretical standpoint. Those would be the careers they avoid. And next we have the Enneagram Sixes, which are the loyalists, and they have this fear of chaos. So overall, an Enneagram 6 would want to be loyal to whatever cause or community that they belong to. So, I mean, the worst example I can give is Nazis. They just believed in the cause so much. Another bad example is Satanists, because again, they believe in the cause so much. But anyway, Enneagram Sixes are really devoted to a system, right? They fear being without guidance. They need mentorship. They need guidance. They need a community. So they can be religious in the sense of similar to Enneagram ones. Like an Enneagram 1 fears being corrupted, but an Enneagram 6 is more like, I need guidance, not so much because they care about being good or evil. It's more because they care about not knowing what to do. So someone might, read the Bible because they're like, oh, I don't know, what does God think about this? What does God think about that? They can also be very loyal to their community. So I know someone who, even though he got typed as a 5, he seems a lot like a 6. I think he'd be a 6-wing 5 rather than a 5-wing 6, but I'll explain what that means later. But someone who, like, let's say they're born in Africa, right? Born in Kenya. they would really focus on promoting Africa, making Africa a better place. Like if they had the opportunity to leave go to another country and become richer there, they'd rather choose to stay where they are and do the best to support their community. If they work for a company, then they would be so loyal, very loyal to the company. Like they would feel nothing without their job. So again, this is very different from the Enneagram 3. So an Enneagram 3 cares more about the achievement, where if someone, let's say, worked in a tech company that's not as good as Apple, and they got offered a promotion. So a 3 would take the promotion because they have no loyalty, right? The 3 just wants the higher position. The 6 would be like, no, I've worked here for 5 years, 10 years. I want to stay here. Like I want a promotion, but I want it to be in the company because they're used to the order, structure, and vision that the company has created. So they're very loyal, which is a good thing because they just need structure. They need mentors. They're like, oh, when it comes to positivity, I listen to this guru. When it comes to this religion, I listen to this guru. So the problem is they kind of don't always think for themselves. So, for example, like with fitness, they believe more in the person rather than in what they're being told. So, like, they'll find a fitness guru, maybe like Scott Herman or someone like that, and they'll be like, wow, I like this guy, I'm going to follow his workout, I'm going to do everything he says. But if someone comes and criticizes their reasoning and tries to be like, um oh, this workout isn't that good, you should try this different workout, it's hard for them to switch because they're already stuck to it. They're like, I believe in this guy, so I want to finish the workout, I want to follow it and to finish it. So long story short, uh they're very loyal. um the issue is when they're loyal to the wrong thing. So jobs, I guess maybe joining the military. I'm trying to think. I haven't thought too much about Enneagram Sixes. Maybe joining the military, maybe joining nurses, maybe joining a charity, any position where it has a system and they can be loyal to it. So even some religions like being monks or preachers, again, not so much the fear of corruption, but more so the fear of being without guidance, right? And then Enneagram Sevens, the enthusiast, fear of being bored. So kind of the stereotypical hotshot. If you're familiar with MBTI, basically a lot of extroverted perceivers. So people with dominant extroverted perceiving, EPs, so ESTPs, ENTPs, ENFPs, ESFPs. Those would be Enneagram 7. So they just fear being bored. So they're always trying to seek novelty and excitement in their lives. And they're worried that they'll be bored and they'll get stuck in the same routine. So they just really hate being bored. It's hard to keep them excited. They hardly stick to the same thing every like more than 2 years. So it's kind of difficult for them. Commitment is really hard, whether it's physical commitment or whether it's commitment to a discipline or a field of study. So an Enneagram 7, how would you describe an Enneagram 7? Basically, someone who has taken different types of drugs, has backpacked across Europe or Africa, likes a job where they can travel a lot. That's ideally what the Enneagram 7 is. It sounds a lot like an ENFP. ENFPs would correlate to me the highest with the Enneagram 7. And then you have Enneagram 8s, the evilest of evil. They have a fear of being harmed and controlled, so they tend to really dominate people. They're really aggressive, they never show any love, and they just don't want to be dominated. So pretty much probably every dictator in history, Stalin, Mao, Hitler, all of them would be Enneagram 8s, most likely. A lot of them, well, that is a very Enneagram 8 like capability. They, I think in media, the most recent person I typed as an Enneagram 8 would be Damien from Vampire Diaries. You know, he kind of hurts everyone around him, doesn't really trust people around him, that kind of thing. But you can have good Enneagram 8s, which is rare. Oh yeah, Trump is also an Enneagram 8. So again, that sort of dominate you. He's an ESTP Enneagram 8, so very dominant sort of person. Like ENTJs would be more dominant, but the 8 factor would also push Trump to be more dominant. So the flip side is Enneagram 8s can also be uh, good leaders some of the time. A really good example of a good Enneagram 8 is Vi from Arcane. It's a 3D animated Netflix series. You should check it out. It's based on League of Legends, I think. So Vi is an Enneagram 8 and an ESTP, and you can see it in her dominance in that the way she's not like ESTPs can normally be fearless and stuff, but the dominance is really what shows up in the Enneagram 8, like the way she dominates people, like calling that girl Cupcake because she's sweet, and it was kind of almost like, you know, when you enter prison and and there's that like a lesbian, like a female prison, and there's that lesbian chick that's gonna dominate you, right? Call you her cupcake. That's how that scene felt to me. Or this other time when she was telling that guy like, "Do we have a deal, pretty boy?" Like that was such a dominant move because this guy was like a counselor in this city, and she was like from the undercity, so she was just being so like, you know, calling him a pretty boy, like so nonchalant with like the most powerful guy. It's like calling, I don't know, the president of Spain or whatever a pretty boy when you're like from the slums or whatever. So yeah, that's a good example of an Enneagram 8. But they're supposedly pretty good at business because they don't mind leadership positions. Again, they don't want to be harmed or controlled. So how do they achieve that? They do it by getting into leadership positions. If you're familiar with Enneagram, I mean MBTI, ENTJs, and ESTJs, those would be Enneagram 8s. They also they also don't fear being challenged, sort of. I mean, they fear being harmed and controlled, but they view things as a challenge. Like if they get injured, they're like, screw it, I'll get back to it. Like, doesn't really matter. If life is hard, they're like, oh, you know, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, move on, you know. They really take it on the chin. They're very hard people. So they're not really people to whine or complain or feel helpless. They take life head on. Those are the kind of people that they are. So they're very kind of strong people in that regard. They don't back down from life no matter how hard it is because they see it as a challenge. Um, it's just they tend to most of them tend to be quite aggressive towards other people in a very unhealthy way. And next you have Enneagram Nines, peacemakers, fear of confrontation. So not to be confused with the Enneagram 8, these people, they kind of, they're also like monks in a sense. So just more of wanting peace and keeping things peaceful. So they really don't like conflict. So a good job for them would be mediators of any kind, uh, maybe hostage negotiators, diplomats, like, oh, we need to solve the issue between Israel and Palestine. You know, they want peace. They don't like a lot of conflict. Issue is some people say they might be pushovers because they dislike violence and stuff. Gentle giants, so to speak. Right. And now moving on to the wings. So basically the wing is sort of the second personality that suits you. So the wing is the number either on the left or on the right. So if you're an Enneagram 5, you're either a 5 wing 4 or a wing 6. If you're an Enneagram 6, you're either a 6 wing 5 or wing 7. So just to give an example, what's the difference between a 3 wing 2 and a 3 wing 4? Because 2 is the number before it, 2 is the number after it. So a 3 wing 2, uh, feeling that lack of worthiness and lack of being loved, they would want to be really, really popular and really, really high achieving. So, like, think of just a really popular CEO or achiever, that kind of person, or a politician. That's who a 3 wing 2 would be like. A 3 wing 4 wants the same achievement, doesn't care as much about popularity, cares more about uniqueness. So think about maybe the best figure skater in the world, right? Figure skating is a very niche thing, right? So someone who's the best figure skater in the world with all the achievements, all the medals, that's probably a 3 wing 4, because they don't care as much about mainstream popularity. They care more about achievement and uniqueness. But I'll show you the websites where you can read all of this. This video, the purpose of this video is really to summarize everything to save you a lot of time. Because if you're reading this, it might take you 6 hours or 10 hours to wrap your head around the stuff. And this is just going to be, less than an hour, right? So now the question is, what's the difference between a 5 wing 6 and a 6 wing 5? Well, a 5 wing 6, in terms of people and mentorship, they would use that to gain more knowledge. It's like, I have to belong to a system so that I can learn more and achieve my goals. But a 6 wing 5 is more like, I need to study more and learn more so that I can help the system that I'm with. So someone belongs to a company, and the reason they belong to the company is they want to help the company, so they do that by studying. That's a 6 wing 5. A 5 wing 6 is more like they want to learn how to code, so they're going to join this company so they can learn how to code. So technically you'd say a 5 wing 6 is more selfish, but the purpose is, again, primarily the 5 is knowledge and the group is a means to an end, whereas a 6 wing 5, um, the group is the purpose and the knowledge is a means to an end. And you also have instinctual variance, which is very important. So you have self-preservation, uh, sexual, and social. So sexual is kind of the difficult one to understand, but self-preservation, these people care about security. So someone who is just like, oh, I need a job, I need money, I need to be secure, get married early, have kids, right? Social, they care more about socializing. And each type, right? Each type has a description for its own sexual variant. So like you can Google Enneagram 5 instinctual variants and it will tailor the description to Enneagram 5s. So for example, a social Enneagram 5, basically all they care about is learning through knowledge. I mean, learning knowledge through people and spreading knowledge to people. So they're kind of professors, and they teach knowledge and they learn knowledge and they keep it in that loop. But a self-preservation 5 is more of those cerebral 5s that they stay by themselves. Those introverts who can lock themselves up on an island and just continuously read books. That is a 5 that has self-preservation as their instinct rather than social as their instinct. Sexual, it means they just focus more on one-to-one sexual relationships. Like, they don't necessarily care about having a lot of friends as long as they have their wife or their partner. But it can be a bit more complex than that. I'll admit, I focused once I just learned I have the social variant. I stopped caring about what the others meant, and the sexual variant is tricky to understand. So, in case you want to read any further, this is the book I would recommend, The Wisdom of the Enneagram by Don Richard Risso. I think there are other books on Enneagram, but it's a good book. Frankly, I didn't read the book. I just read the websites, and the websites, they usually lift from the books. So here are some other websites as well. This is my favorite website. It is called the Anagram Institute. So if you just Google, it's the first website. When you just Google like Enneagram 5, it's probably going to be the first website that pops up. It has very, very good descriptions. I think I agree, the descriptions the most. So yeah, as you can see, when you Google Enneagram types, type descriptions, the Enneagram Institute pops up first. Then when you click like the helper, I didn't really go into stress and growth because it's not too important. But yeah, like it has this description in the brief description, then it has the fear, being unwanted, desire to be loved, the two with the one wing, two with the three wing, and so on and so forth. I think the only issue with the website is I don't think it talks about the instinctual variant. But yeah, if you just Google Enneagram instinctual variants, then uh you can find them. Like, I'm not too picky on which website you should use. I read this a long time ago, not this website, but I read on Enneagram a long time ago. So yeah, you can just click, as long as you get a good enough understanding of the subtypes, it doesn't really matter because it's kind of the same thing, but with a slight twist on it. So yeah, it doesn't really matter which website you read as long as you read it. And obviously the idea is you probably won't stop after you read one website. The idea is you'd continue hearing different people's perspectives on it. So yeah, just click on the first website. In terms of the test, I think the Enneagram Institute has the best free test for determining your type. But then you have to do a test for the wings. Uh, with wings. Hmm. I'm not sure if it's the Trinity test that I did, but yeah, you can just do any of the free tests online that you find have the wings, and I guess maybe the subtypes as well. Test with instinctual variants, and test with just the wings. So yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed this video. I've really condensed maybe 10 hours of videos and reading plus 2 years, not even 2 years, well, it's more like 10 years, but 2 years of experience typing people, watching people, learning from people. And I've just given a base point for you to start from, right? Because you've seen those pages, right? Like, this is a 30-minute video, but you've seen like the description of an Enneagram 2 is like 4 pages long, and I've given 2 sentences, yet this video is 30 minutes. So you can imagine if I read word for word what it would be like. So I hope you appreciate this summary, and maybe next I'll do a video on what it's like to be an INTP Enneagram 5-wing 6, or maybe just a 5-wing 6 with the social variant. So just to be clear, each type has its own social variant. So like 8-wing 9, sexual, social, self-preservation, right? So in total, they're like what, 9 types multiplied by the 2 wings. So 18 types multiplied by the instinctual variance. So 18 times 3. What is that? That's is that 54 or something? Probably 54, I think. My maths is rusty. Probably 54, right? Because, yeah, it's 54. but the types have layers. So some types are not that different from each other. So yeah,